2000. Today, ISIS has surrendered 99% of its territory. Let me say that again. Today, ISIS has surrendered 99% of its territory, including its former capital of Raqqa. To put that accomplishment in perspective, Mr. President, in January of 2015, ISIS controlled more than 34,000 square miles of Syria and Iraq. 34,000 miles of Syria and Iraq was ISIS-controlled territory. The world looks a lot different today. Less than 3 weeks ago, the so-called caliphate, the ISIS caliphate, withdrew from its last major urban stronghold in Syria. They're now being held to a small sliver of territory on the eastern border with Iraq, near the Euphrates River. I think it's plain to see, Mr. President, that the Syrian Kurds have been indispensable in our fight against the Islamic State. Today, the SDF, the Syrian Kurds, control nearly a quarter of Syria. That land no longer belongs to ISIS. That land is being lived in peacefully by the Syrian Kurds. It doesn't belong to Russia, and it doesn't belong to Iran. It's land where the Kurds know that they will be free from persecution and from slaughter. There are 30 million Kurds in the world, Mr. President, as you well know. They are living in Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey. In each country, the Syrian Kurds have been subjected to discrimination, to massacres, to forced relocation, and to countless other human rights violations. The Kurdish people are one of the largest, if not the largest, ethnic minority in the world that doesn't have a state or a country to call its own. After World War I, when Western interests carved up the Middle East, the Kurds were left without a state, despite President Woodrow Wilson's argument that would be, and indeed is, unfair. The truth is that the Kurds in the world today, no matter where they are not completely safe anywhere. The Turkish defense minister made that clear just this last December when he said that when the time comes, the Turkish defense minister said, the Kurds, quote, will be buried in the ditches they dug. No one should doubt this. That's a direct quote, Mr. President. Now, just last week, Secretary of State Pompeo said, quote, ensuring that the Turks don't slaughter the Kurds and the protection of religious minorities there in Syria are still part of the American mission set. Secretary Pompeo is a wise man. Our troops there in the region who stand beside our Kurdish friends do more than simply offer supplies and logistical support to the Kurds. They're a visible sign of our solidarity in the fight against Islamic terrorism. Without assurances of our support, the Kurds will be left to fend for themselves. And without the Kurds, we cannot be certain who will step in to fill the power vacuum in the areas of Syria that they currently control. We just won't. We can only guess, and the answers aren't good. Mr. President, the threat of U.S. military force has been a major deterrent for the reemergence of jihadists like ISIS and like al-Qaeda. We know that. Our presence has held back Assad, Turkey, Russia, and Iran from gaining stronger footholds in the area. If the Kurds are vulnerable to attack from Turkey or Syrian rebels, they may turn to our enemies for protection out of fear. And even if the Kurds didn't, they can't fight off the Turkish, troops and pursue the remnants of ISIS at the same time. To abandon the Kurds, for America to abandon the Kurds in Syria now would compromise the security of our allies, it would compromise the security of Israel, of Jordan, and it would risk exposing the region to more turmoil.